Way up, Tim, way up. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You're a fast hiker. You make it look so easy. I just can't wait to talk to you. And it wasn't about the hike. I wanted to talk to you about View, this great new business you've started.
Well, thanks for coming here today. Appreciate it.
You make this business stuff look so easy. You know, I've been dying to talk with you about how do you start a company and have it become something like View. I mean, you come from that creative space in the past, and now you're creating a whole new way of thinking about this world.
Well, first off, this is just a dream to be here and have this technology like we do today. You know, 15 years ago when I started in the creative world, you know, we always dreamed about being able to see content at the speed of thought, but the computers and the technologies were never there. Today they are. And so what was just a dream years ago now is actually something that we could all use.
Well, I think about the speed of thought, and the rumor has it that we're actually not in the desert right now. We're here right now, aren't we? At View Studios. And tell me, what is this? What is the space that we're standing in? Is it looks like one of the most massive studios I've ever seen?
Yeah, well, what we're in here today is a virtual production studio. And what we do is we use large format immersive LED displays to put real-time graphics on the screen. And so what you would do 5 years ago is go into a big box like this and paint it green, and everyone would imagine, and then you would key that green screen out in a post-production process. Now all of that happens in real time, and everybody sees it and participates with it. So the display is now the digital setting for wherever you want to be.
Well, I can imagine that you think about the pandemic that everyone lived through and how all of a sudden we couldn't be shooting on location. We couldn't film an enterprise or a retail store or a movie on location. And for years, however, people have been getting talent from lots of different places to contribute to a production. So how does this bring that all together in real time?
Well, really this technology democratizes the way that we do production. Before, to be a part of the shoot, you had to physically be in the location with the crew and participate at a very localized level. Now this is allowing that process to be distributed, really to the ends of the earth, because if you think about a connected studio, anytime the internet hits a new industry, it disintermediates it. We saw it with e-commerce, you know, and Amazon came in. It's like the second you have a virtual store, now your scale is unlimited. You saw it with Netflix. The second that you don't have to go to a place to rent a DVD, now you can have it everywhere. And now studios, for the first time in 50 years, are connected to the internet, and connected studios are allowing participation to be widely distributed.
When you think about that kind of new disruption occurring, and you think about that as an entrepreneur, you're having to teach a lot of people in a creative way the fact that their world is unlimited, that they can have this canvas to paint on that isn't limited by time and space. I remember hearing it, didn't Nick Cage actually act in a bunch of his scenes in a movie in a space like this?
Yeah, in our Las Vegas studio, we just shot Nicolas Cage's new movie, and he was able to do a lot of scenes that we would have had to close the strip down for in the studio, and it's photorealistic to the viewer, so they'll never know that, you know, we weren't there right in the heart of Las Vegas, but actually right off the strip in our Las Vegas studio.
When you think about how much it is disruptive to a business to shut down, to open a new store and bring in a film crew and maybe even have to rearrange everything for retail. Talk about how a business might use this technology.
Well, there's always been a physical limitation to a location, and that is that you have time constraints of getting all the crew there, and magic hour, you know, sunset, that's not an hour, that's like 15 minutes. And when you hit record, it's seconds. And so the ability to control weather too, and to control the places that might be very crowded or hard to get permits to. Now we can go to those places digitally, and it just really gives power to the creative, because you're no longer confined by, will my budget allow this? It's more now just a question of, does the story need it? And so we've been, popular place we've been shooting on more and more is the moon. It's like now that we have several studios across the U.S., we're getting to see how people are really using this technology to its full potential.
Talk about a few of those use cases that we might recognize. I know that this scene that we're standing in today has been used in many different ways, but there's more flexibility than what we see with a desert.
Yeah, one of the things we had in our Tampa studio, which is the very first studio that we created, was the Top Gun movie was coming out, and Tom Cruise was in the area, and they wanted to make a promo for the AFC final. And they called us the day before and said, hey, can we get him in there and recreate a scene from Top Gun to help promote this. And they were able to bring in some of the video plates that they had shot from the movie, put them on the wall, and it's really indistinguishable from some of the scenes of the movie. But
really,
they didn't need to go out on the aircraft carrier. They didn't need to bring the jet in.
And they could match all the light and everything with the actor in that location.
And so the savings were incredible, because anytime that you are able to do the location digitally, the logistics costs just completely reduced. But the idea of being able to get a call the day before and execute the next day is just something in our industry that hasn't been capable of until now.
When you think about the role of the leadership team, you've got the creative director, you've got the people who are producing advertising and marketing and so forth. How would you counsel a chief executive? I'm a coach for chief executives. We wouldn't be really grounded in the pedagogy around the technique or the technology. What does this really mean for me as a leader in thinking about what I can do with my people too, and my employees, or with the way I think about creating new concepts and products?
Well, I think the biggest lesson we've learned is that the adoption of technology, particularly in the creative industry, has been something that's been a very incremental process. And now this is a paradigm shift from the way that we did things. And so it was a little bit of a risk to go out and try to get adoption on a much broader scale. But we found that by giving that power to the end customer, it's really got a lot of people excited. And so as any business owner that is seeing innovation coming at them, I would say, don't swerve or dodge, accept it, because the reality is that there's only one direction that innovation goes, and it penetrates all industries. And so we saw this as an opportunity to be on the forefront of something that really we think is going to be mainstream in the next 5 to 10 years. And so we wanted to learn it as much as we could now.
There's a principle of learning a craft, and it actually happened here in Central Florida, talking from the University of Florida, actually talking about this idea of 10,000 hours and getting better at things. And you were also talking about Malcolm Gladwell's principle. Could you share how that really plays into being a leader here?
Particularly too in the creative industry, is that as an artist, talent you're born with, and you have an eye for something, or maybe you have a unique way that you approach a project. But skill you can only acquire through hard work, and so it takes a lot of repetition. You just got to get in and put in the time. And so that 10,000 hours principle is that if you're hustling every day and night, sooner than later you made enough mistakes that you get it right. Over time you're going to get good at something. And it's an inevitable consequence of multiple tries. But the idea that starting early and then getting the 10,000 hours is a cumulative advantage, because what you've done is it snowballs. It's I'm going to get into an industry that's not very well known. There's not much taught on this. Try to turn all the faucets on high and see where the cracks in the pipes are. And then really go issue by issue and learn that. And so that process of rapid learning, it really helps from a business standpoint get a strategic advantage early on. And so we've seen that while a lot of people in this industry are still just on the first or second studio, we've been able to scale multiple studios across the U.S. because we learned very quickly with the first one. And so that's just something that our motto is go fast and break things. It's like, the quicker you can fail, as long as you got the enthusiasm to try again, the more muscle memory and learnings you're going to get out of it.
So you had this balancing act between a traditional industry and a customer who needs a very minimum level of quality. In fact, they probably wouldn't even appreciate having me talk about it as being a minimum level of quality, but there needs to be that gold standard that you're searching for and that you need to deliver on. Now it seems like you're able to compress on time and on cost. Usually the three dimensions are time, cost, and quality. Pick any two.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing here is another disruption. You're saying actually all three of these come together using this technology.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost unbelievable when we pitch people. We say, hey, it's going to be cheaper, faster, and it's going to be more creative than anything you've ever done. And so when they hear that, it's not even believable.
Right.
But that's the idea of real-time technology, is that in real time you're reducing this old assembly line production that we used to have.
Sequences.
Of very specialized talent and an order. And now the order compresses to, let's all work on this, some people even remotely, in this real-time process, and then try to get final pixel in camera.
When you think about this dimension from being an entrepreneur, the lessons that others could gather from being a disruptor and knowing you have to go fast also because you don't have unlimited runway. You have to invest quickly. You have to harvest all the tax of your experience and convert that into great outcomes. What's it feel like to be an entrepreneur when you're going from an industry where you were traditionally trained and coming in now and saying, well, I think I may have found a better way. Actually, I'm convinced I found a better way. What's your advice?
Well, I would say it's a full contact sport. It's like boxing. You know, if you've learned to play chess, it's not very consequential if you lose. But if you're learning to box while you're boxing, you know, it's like getting hit in the face over and over again, and then learning, okay, I need to defend myself. I need to be agile. I need to make these moves. So in any new industry, you're learning as you're growing, and that's a challenge in scale. So entrepreneurship is hard in the sense that you have to maintain that enthusiasm over times where, you know, it's very challenging. And so
you did the Worldwide Wrestling here actually in one of these kind of similar desert sort of settings and so forth. Was it these early adapters that decided that they just take a swing for the fences because they are early adapters, or how was it that they decided? These big brands have come here.
Yeah.
You've had Mercedes commercials and so forth.
Yeah, we see that, you know, there's always a portion of the population that wants to be on the cutting edge of technology. But there's
but you can't even tell. I mean, it's really you're breaking through. I guess that's the reveal, isn't it? Look at how we did this, at what cost, and at what outcome.
It does help every time that we have a new brand come in and have a good experience. It provides leverage for the next sale because it's showing the world that, hey, this isn't some new risky technology. It works. It's proven. But we've seen too that, like any new technology, you know, there is the chasm. And Jeffrey Moore talks about this in his book, Crossing the Chasm. Is that, you know, for the majority of the population to get adoption, it has to be rock solid and it has to go past that testing phase. And like any technology, to get through the testing phase, you have to get the learnings, and learnings are only achieved through you know, multiple failures, multiple nights and weekends, you know, tinkering with the tech. And so again, our process has been, let's just accelerate that as fast as we can and really, you know, be able to find out how do we make this technology more streamlined to the masses. When
you think about the fact that it's a lonely place to be an entrepreneur, sometimes with an idea, and now you're getting to the point where you can express this at scale and that you have the great brands. Could you talk about what it felt like when you were first trying to sell the idea in the first place? And I imagine a lot of people thought you were nuts. What would be your hack for how to get some sleep on those nights when you couldn't sell it?
Well, I think the biggest challenge you know, any entrepreneur has is that when you're trying to get someone to be empathetic or excited about an idea that is relatively nuanced or on the edge, you have to have the expectation that the failure is going to be the majority of the response. You know, it's that you're going to get the door closed in your face more times than not. But being able to take each one and figure out, all right, how do I learn from that experience and make the next one better? It's while success might be the minority of times, if you can really lean into it and remember that feeling and use that as motivation, you know, I feel like that's something that I've just kind of harvested and leaned into is that, just try to forget, the ones that didn't go through and lean into the ones that went really well, and use that as, a way to continue on.
Did you have mentors, or do you have advisors and others who kind of contribute to your journey? And
yeah, I've had a lot of incredible help over the years. A lot of past clients that I had working relationships with, and Mark was one of them that that have done this before. I mean, there's so many things that you can't prepare for unless you've experienced it, and so having someone with that kind of wisdom really helps, along the path. And most startups, even though they're in different industries and different technologies, all different services, they have a very similar way that businesses are organized and executed. And so if you can get those fundamentals and apply them, that's invaluable to have.
What do you wish you knew about leading people and recruiting them to a cause? We talked about the consumer, we talked about the client. What's it like to build a team and a bench around something that's changing pretty much every day as you make new discoveries and you're failing fast forward and succeeding? What's it mean to be a leader? Usually that's a gig that people like yourself haven't necessarily signed up for, in addition to inventing the technology, running a business, and being a customer-facing person.
Well, the people part of business is always the most challenging, because you never know until you get into business with someone exactly how they're going to perform or if it's going to work out on a culture level. But what I found is in the recruiting process, I'm always looking for the intangibles. Anyone puts a resume in front of me, I have to file that in the trash can, because to me, past experience, while it might be helpful in this industry, is secondary to how good of a fit they are culture-wise, or how passionate they are about the craft. So in the creative world, I would always ask people, show me the videos you did on the weekend and you didn't get paid for. And people that have a lot of those, it tells you something about them.
Right.
It's that they like to do this not because it's a job, because it's a passion.
Yes.
And so I find this is the same thing in technology, that there are people that naturally want to tinker. And if you get those creators in your maker house and you get them working on the tech, they're going to take it so much farther than the one who might be trained in the craft, that's an engineer in that space. And so that's what we look for, is just really passionate people.
That combination that you described was something that in our first book, which was Jim Collins wrote a book called Built to Last. And after having studied with him at Stanford, we wrote a book called Success Built to Last, because people were wondering how to really make that personal. Companies and organizations had to last, but for heaven's sakes, they're made up of individuals. And how do you recruit that culture and that sense of passion? And we found it was a sense of purpose, a sense of passion, that obsession that you just described. Are you making the videos on the weekend just cause for you, just because it means something to you? And then finally, you like to win. You like to be able to maybe compete and deliver something that's great, that's better than the next guy's for the customer. And it was that triad of purpose, passion, and performance that would come together to make that difference. You've had an opportunity in your career to think about that purpose as well. We talked about how you've been able to deliver for customers. Talk about what meaning means to you in the nature of this work, because that's also what recruits us and calls us to keep us motivated in the work that we do, right?
Yeah, I mean, meaning is really the underlying thing that differentiates whether your work is stressful or you're passionate about it and it's just work. And so, for me, like I see there's a lot of burnout if you don't have something bigger than the paycheck behind it, or bigger than just clocking in 9 to 5. And so I get excited about this stuff all around the clock, and it's because what I see is that when I was a kid and I was just starting in my business, 18 years old, I couldn't afford a camera at the time. I was borrowing my buddies for a year.
Nice.
And I had a dream about having the tools I needed to make great stories. And when I look at this, I think, man, you know what? This is a tool that is going to give that opportunity to someone in the future, that's going to pay it forward. And so I really think that as we build more and more studios and learn how to take this technology that's in a large format and bring it down to the consumer level eventually, that it's just democratizing the creative power that's in the world right now, that people who need tools and don't have them will eventually have them one day.
Well, I'm sold now, and you can sleep well knowing that I think the fact that you're empowering people with storytelling all over the world whether they're businesses and enterprises trying to do that for a retail store or making major motion pictures, you're having a big impact. And so congratulations for that, and thank you for taking me on this hike today.
Yeah.
Thank goodness it wasn't the desert, because I never would have made it home. This is really an amazing
It was a
adventure
pleasure
you're on.
having you over.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Tim.